Okay, welcome back to another episode of our series. In our previous presentation, we started looking at the meaning and nature of economics, the introductory concepts, and we gave a meaning to the term. Okay, but at this stage, we are going to look at the key words in the definition, because if you look at the definition given by Professor Robbins, you could see some key words in there. Okay. So the first one that you can see, or we are going to talk of, is economics as a science. Okay, so when you say economics as a science, what does it mean? It's a science because it uses a scientific approach in dealing with its analysis, or dealing with people, government, or the firms. Okay, it uses scientific approach. But however, it is not a pure science because it deals with human behavior. So it is being considered as social science. Okay, it is a social science because it deals with human behavior, and it is not a pure science because it deals with human behavior. Okay, and in the scientific approach, or in dealing with its analysis, or in using scientific approach in making its analysis, there are certain pattern, or there are certain procedure or scientific approach that it uses, and this scientific approach is what we are going to consider from here. So the first one that you have to bear in mind is data gathering. Okay, so an economist would like to find out about a phenomenon. Okay, something about a phenomenon, say a recent rise in the consumption of a certain product. They will be interested in finding out what brought about that. But in order to do that, they have to gather information about that phenomenon, say, and the rise in consumption of a certain product. Okay, so the first thing that the economist will do is to gather information about the phenomenon. Okay, so after gathering the information, then they have to move on to the next stage. Okay, and the next stage has to do with classification of the data to identify some kind of pattern or relationship between the data collected. Okay, so they will organize the data collected to identify pattern between the data. Okay, and when they are able to identify some kind of pattern between the data, then they will move on to the next stage, which has to do with generalization based on the patterns. Okay, and in generalization of the pattern, they could say that, okay, because the people have earned so much, or their income has gone up so much, that is why there has been some kind of higher demand for that particular product. Or maybe they could say that because their desire for that particular product has gone up, the demand for that particular hence has also gone up. Okay, so in generalizing the data based on the pattern, okay, they will be able to come out with a theory to say that if consumers' taste for a particular product goes up, the demand for that particular product will also go up, and vice versa. Okay, so based on the pattern that they will be able to identify between the data, they will be able to come out with a theory. Okay, and whenever they come out with a theory, economists, like other professionals, they are able to make prediction about the future. Okay, so they can, based on the circumstance at hand and based on the theory that they've gathered, okay, so they can say that whenever or in future, or because of the situation at hand, maybe the demand for this particular product will go down because they've been able to identify some kind of pattern, and the pattern that they've identified, they've come out with a theory which says that at any point in time, if this situation happens, then we are moving on to this direction. If this one too also happens, then we are moving on to the other direction. Okay, so this is how economists use scientific approach in dealing with people, or in making its analysis. So that is why we say economics is a science, because it uses scientific approach. And in using scientific approach, It uses data gathering, organizing the data, generalizing based on the pattern identified, and making a prediction out of the theory that they've come out with. Okay, so economics is considered as a science, but however, it is not a pure science because it deals with human behavior. Thank you very much for watching. See you in upcoming series.